Coming up on the 4-Minute Sports Daily, we take a quick look at Antonio Brown's retirement from the National Football League for the second time in 10 months. Or was it really just a publicity stunt to get you to buy his new album? All of that and more coming up on the big show today. I'm Dave DeVaugh. Thanks so much for tuning into the 4-Minute Sports Daily. It is the sports show in which we attempt to give you the world of sports in 4 minutes or less. And I will have to admit, we fail at that on a regular basis miserably. That being said, let's dive into today's story about Antonio Brown, who sent out a series of carefully crafted tweets yesterday, where he cryptically, basically through a series of 3 tweets, indicates that he is moving on from the National Football League. Now, I have to say this about Antonio Brown, and it's something that needs to be said. Now, there have been some issues, as we know, with AB in the past, not being totally, how do I put this, mentally all there. Now, if you think about Antonio Brown's career in the National Football League, I think it was like a 6th or a 7th round draft pick, came out of a school that nobody's ever heard of before and still hasn't heard of today. He took himself all the way to the top of the top echelons inside the National Football League. He went about as far as a wide receiver could go. He was at top of the mountain. And then suddenly, there were all sorts of things that popped up in Pittsburgh that led the Steelers to finally say it was time to allow Antonio Brown to move on. Now, we all know what happened with him in the silver and black. Now, anybody that is perfectly sane and has the opportunity to make $30 million, and all they have to do is be ready to go at the start of the National Football League season, would basically do whatever they had to do to make that happen. Instead, in Antonio Brown's world, he was fighting against the silver and black before he even had a chance to play it down for that team inside the National Football League, and it cost him well over $30 million. That's not even to mention all the other money that he's lost. Now, look, Kanye West, who is a well-publicized bout with bipolar disease and at times has chosen to not take the medicine. At the very least, at least Kanye has a diagnosis. Now, you might not agree with how he's handling things, but at least there's a diagnosis. So at this stage of the game, no diagnosis for Antonio. He then goes on to the New England Patriots. He plays a game with the New England Patriots. Tommy, the hitman Brady, absolutely loves throwing the ball to Antonio Brown for one whole game. Like, he literally did not look at anybody else. Like, nobody else got looked at during that game. All Tommy did was throw the ball to Antonio Brown, which was a thing of beauty. And then there were the allegations that came, and a whole slew of allegations popped up. Everything from the sexual harassment allegations to just a bunch of other things. We don't have enough time to dive into all of those. So he had all those things. So then he's forced to leave the National Football League again. And then he has a off the field incident, and there's a court case. There's all sorts of issues. There's a fight with a moving truck company, and there's all sorts of stuff that happens. So finally, the court mandates that he get some mental health. So it looks like Antonio Brown is finally turning himself around. So much so that Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks, who are very much like the New England Patriots and the old Raiders of the past, where they could take damaged goods and turn them into something good, or turn them into something potentially great again. That's how strong of a head coach and an organization that they have up in Seattle. just like they have in New England. And so they went through a whole vetting process. And if they had called me, I could have saved them some money during their vetting process, because clearly Antonio Brown is not totally back on the right track. Or is he? Look, I don't know what kind of mental health care Antonio Brown's getting. What I do know is yesterday's attempt to retire from the National Football League went down like this. It's time to walk away. I'm done. Everything in the game I could do, basically, as what he says. And there's a question mark, slammer, slammer. He follows that up with another tweet about 6 or 7 minutes later. And he says, at this point, the risk is greater than the reward. Thank you, everyone who has been part of this journey. I sincerely thank you for everything. Life goes on. 84, slammer. A couple minutes later, I came, I saw, I conquered. Mission complete. Call God. A couple minutes later, Himothy. Like, what does Himothy mean? It just says Himothy with some sort of hand signal, which is then followed up by AB's Himothy. Get early access to the new music, merch, tickets, and more. Log in with your Spotify account, etc., etc., etc. So he follows up his pseudo second retirement from the National Football League with a promo for an album that he's releasing. Now, I was curious, as you might imagine. I was very curious. Like, was this album out yet? Would it be any good if I actually spent a couple minutes listening to it, as I owed it to you, the fans, to save you the time and to attempt to listen to said album? So I did, and I was able to hear a bit of one song called TNT, and it wasn't bad. It actually wasn't bad. Nothing else has actually been released at this point, but what I can say is there's some fantastic song names on this album. He's got a song called James Bond, another one called Man on a Mission, and my personal favorite, which I can't wait to listen to, Goat Mode. And what I wonder about Goat Mode is, did he get Tom Brady to actually sing a duet with him on it? Wouldn't that be great if TB12 did a duet with AB on his new Himothy album? I'm just saying that would have been absolutely fantastic. So look, I don't know where Antonio Brown is from a mental capacity at this point. What I do know is he's learned something from watching somebody on television that's been really good at promoting themselves. And I will say this, in the National Football League, as well as in the NBA, there are a lot of players out there that talk about their brands. And it's the ones that talk about their brands that don't seem to actually have a brand. It's the people who don't talk about their brands that are actually able to legitimately have brands. If you take a look at what Cam Newton has done in the National Football League with his Emmy Award-winning videos, should be Emmy Award-winning videos in the last couple weeks, you can see that that's a good use of self-promotional material. AB is simply doing the same thing. He's simply trying to draw attention to himself so he can hawk a couple, hopefully more than a couple pieces of vinyl. That is exactly what Antonio Brown is doing with his second retirement from the National Football League. Look, I would love to see AB back in the NFL. Look, I hope he is getting the kind of mental health that he needs. I hope all of that is being taken care of. If he does get back into the National Football League, there certainly is going to be some sort of suspension. So I'm sure at some point during the upcoming season, we'll have an opportunity for either an Antonio Brown retirement from the National Football League number 3, or an actual signing by a football team that believes if they add AB, it's worth the 4 to 6 game suspension that he's probably going to get from Roger Goodell to help take them over the top. Okay. Thank you, by the way, so much for tuning in to what went way over on our 4-minute sports daily. I am Dave DeBaugh. Hey, make sure you check out the big mighty.rip website when you have a chance. We've got all sorts of great stuff on the site. Site's doing absolutely tremendous from a volume perspective. Speaking of self-promotion, well over 250,000 page views last month. Some of the most recent articles, we've got an article about Antonio Brown. We've got a LeBron James is the real MVP. Sorry, Giannis. And my personal favorite of the most recent articles released on mighty.rip, top 10 calls into the NBA snitch line. All right. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. And I hope you have a good day and a tremendous rest of your week.